Okay, so we're going to officially get started. And I'm recording this so you guys can read it back later, or anyone who actually comes in. I don't have to repeat myself now, which is probably a better thing, because you can go back and listen to the recording. So this is going to be the final exam review recording. Final exam is tomorrow at 3 o'clock in the at 3 o'clock. I was going to say in the morning. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon tomorrow. So unfortunately, that's when the school wants to have it, or they have it. They proctor it, so I don't have a say in that, so we're going to have it at 3 o'clock tomorrow. So anyway, so what do you need to know? And I'll give you some time this afternoon to study for it as well. So the exam is, let's see, the exam is 8 multiple choice questions. And we have, 9 multiple choice questions with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 short answers.
There's a short answer.
Short answer, yeah. Or you know, right answers. I'm going to tell you the topic areas, though, and you'll have this afternoon to study, so you'll be able to, hopefully, be able to navigate your way through. I've looked at already, I've graded the exams from the first group. The lowest grade on the exam was a C, actually, so it's not too bad. It is 40% of your grade, however, so it will probably make or break the A to the B range. I'm not going to give anyone lower than a B, so you don't have to worry about that. But it'll definitely affect the grade if you're not prepared for it, or if somebody else did your assignments and you don't even have a MacBook, you don't even know what you're talking about, then that might be an issue for you. But it's a B versus an A is what will end up happening at the end. If that's the case, if you fail it completely. Although it is 40% of the grade, if you fail it completely, your grade would be in the C range, but as I mentioned, I'm not going to give you a C. I'll give you a B. Now that I've said that, let's continue.
Are you giving any programs?
Excuse me?
Are you giving any programs to them?
There's no programs to write, no. In fact, that would be almost impossible for you to do, especially without Xcode. Instead, the questions are short answer variety. There are some source code programming questions, however. There's about 5 or 6. There's about 50-50. Some of them you have to write source code for. Some of them you have to write words for. It's to basically give credit to those people who actually wrote the programs themselves and know how to write the source code. It's an Objective-C programming course. So those people who learned a little bit about Objective-C will score well on this. Those people who have no clue anything about Objective-C will fail it. That's how it works.
So when you're saying I write the source code, like only the function? Or?
Lines of code. If I said initialize if I said create an array of objects that does this, if I said initialize an object, write an initializer, run an initialize, run a method, assign a value to a data member, create a property, create a synthesize.
The first part, like the things which already come.
Like the auto-release pool and
yeah.
Oh, no auto-release pool. I'm going to tell you everything in a few minutes here.
Okay.
I'll tell you everything. But no auto-release pool. You don't do that.
The initializer Xcode has a feature like we don't have to write every time. If we write like init, it will automatically.
Yeah.
So
You can write in it.
okay.
If you've learned Xcode, it's all Xcode. It's all Xcode and C or Objective-C. Don't worry about it. As I go through it, you can ask me questions, but I'm going to tell you exactly what's on it right now. So let me start with the multiple choice questions, because those are a little bit, they're at the beginning of the exam. Actually, they're really true and false questions. They're not very much multiple choice-ish. The multiple choice questions and true and false questions are on basic concepts. As an example, question number 1 is on the category. And so we have questions on protocols and categories in the multiple choice section. So on the concept of the category. So look up categories. So if you're making notes to yourself, write down category and protocol. You need to know the differences between those and what they are, how they work, stuff like that. There's a couple lectures on that as well. And at the end, I'll point out to you, in here, there are some source code pieces. In fact, if you're bored, you can go into source code examples. And you want practice 1, 2, 3, and 4 are the ones that demonstrate all of these concepts. And I believe number 3, let me just take a look here. Seeing how this is primarily a audio recording, I'll show some video here. In code 3 is about, we have protocols in here. we had a tutorial we did on categories, if you remember correctly. We also have these. So I'm looking at number 4. I think is the one I want. So I'm going to go into code 4. Code 4 is packed with stuff. I call them code 4 because when I download them and you unzip them, it says code 4. The folder is called code. There we go. So in here, we have, this is what I was talking about, we have an NS array, we have array concepts. If you, now that you've done all of the assignments, all of the answers to all of the assignments are in code 1, code 2, code 3, and code 4. So if you had problems with NS arrays or something like that, code 4 is what you want, actually, for that one. The ships is in code 4. All of the solutions to all of the assignments are actually in this here as well. There's one that does ships with cruise ships and cargo ships. There's one that does parking meter. It's all in here.
Yeah, but
Yeah?
it was not opening, like, when I tried to run, like, how it's working. So, maybe it was
Which
folder,
one?
Like one of any one of the programs,
Like this one?
like, yeah.
It could have been maybe your Xcode version.
Yeah, the version difference. So then I
It
was-
is backward compatible though. Let's take a look here. I'm just going to try it out just to make sure. Here's a mutable object. Here's what I was talking about. Actually, this is a good one to open up. So this one here, let's just make sure it runs. Yeah. Maybe in your Xcode install, I guess. Myself, I3, sort of mutable array. This one appears to be running. You might get some messages because these are old examples. They're from 2012. So you might get some messages about how it might be upgraded. Don't upgrade it and just leave them alone. Maybe that was why. It could have been why. I don't know. But anyway, in here, this is the one on, change this display around a little bit. Here we go. This is the one I was going to recommend for you. This one just prints out an array. But here's your NS array. Here's how you could create an array. And this, these are objects, by the way, string objects. So you could have just created objects of any type of object, make the array NS array, and just allocate an array. And here's integer with objects and 1, 2, 3, 4. That's one way you could have done the array creation for you for the ships. But now the theme of the ships isn't in here, of course, and there's a parking meter example, but it's not doing the parking car and all the other examples, but it's objects working with other objects together. So if you want a nice review, you struggled or maybe you got a lot of help with the assignments, didn't really do them yourselves, but you want an opportunity to kind of prepare yourself a little bit more, highly recommend going through 1, 2, 3, and 4. Because that's going to show you all of the. In fact, number 4 is the one that's packed full of examples. Yes.
Is it a good practice to have the mutable array init with capacity or not?
You can do it with capacity. What is that noise? Oh, it's a Coke. Okay, I'm like, I thought something was going to explode. I'm like, wait a minute now. Exam's not that hard. I don't know if there's really best practice or not best practice. I mean, the difference really between that mutable is that the mutable one is always going to say it's the same memory address, and it's just going to change. The other array changes too. It just gets created again. It just moves to a different memory address. It's memory related for garbage collection. So does it really matter if you initialize it with a size or you don't initialize it with a size? It doesn't really matter. Depends on where you're going to. It depends on what you're doing with it from a memory perspective.
Because it's going to keep changing, like if we add the objects to the
Mutable just allows it to expand at the current memory address without being moved to another memory address. You can increase the size of an array in Objective-C, but you get a brand new array. You get it located at a different memory address. You don't want it at a different memory address. You want it at the current memory address. Why would you want that? I don't know. For memory issues, memory-related organization, manipulation, something else was pointing to it or something, then I can see that. Most people actually just use mutable arrays by default, especially if they think they're going to adjust it somehow, adjust the size or something. Because so it's a little bit more efficient as a data structure. I mean, or as a, data type. go back. So number 1 was on categories. Now you guys are properly woken up on your Saturday morning. Number 2 is on the concept of IDs. So here, IDs, right here. So the category is right here, by the way. Category. We actually did a tutorial on categories, but here's another example. Here's one on IDs. Here's one on arrays. Look at that. We got a constructor. We also have, in the constructor example, there's an initializer in there too. But let's go for the next question. So the concept of IDs. And stop me as I go through this as well. Number 3 is a protocol and a category question. So I hit you with 2 questions actually, number 1 and number 3 on protocols and categories. And it's a concept question, it's multiple choice. So it's not something where you have to remember how to write one. You don't have to write a category. You don't have to write any source code for a category or for protocols actually. So I'll tell you what, good morning, I'll tell you what you need to write the source code for. So let's see. And number 2 is on the ID. So number 4, 5, number 4 and number 5 are sort of on the same topic. It's on the Objective-C language in general. It's just about the language. And it's a true-false question. So it's on the language. Think about the history of the language. Think about how the language relates to other languages, stuff like that. So those are pretty easy questions, actually. I'm going over what's on the. It's actually being recorded too. So
Yeah, that's what I was
yeah.
We need to know the other language as well.
You don't have to know anything about any other language. It's just how Objective-C fits into the hierarchy of languages. Things about it, it's object-oriented. It's built from Smalltalk. It's a dialect of C. It's like the history of C, of Objectives. Not history, but history. History / information about Objective-C as a programming language. In the beginning of the course, there's a couple of lectures in the beginning. It talks about next step, and it talks about all the questions actually come out of the lectures and the source code examples. So it's in the material. And there's 2 questions on that category of. I don't want to use the word category on that subject area. That's better. Let's see. Number 6 is on the dynamic nature of Objective-C. Dynamic nature. So we have, what do we have? We have dynamic binding, dynamic loading, dynamic types. We have the ID concept as pointed out. Dynamic memory allocation. Number 7 and number 8 is on the class versus the instance concepts. Remember the plus and the minus? The class versus instance methods and stuff. And the public-private protected concept of the access modifier, what's available to who. Can an instance run a class method? Is data public inside of a class? Stuff like that. Is it private? It's private, by the way. Okay. Questions so far? Okay. Number 9. Oh, actually number 8 and 9 are on the same topic areas. So it's also on the private, public, protected, class versus instance kind of categories of questions. It's kind of a combo question between those concepts. There's 2 questions that are sort of, actually they're sort of related. But, and that's all of our multiple choice true falses. It's just 9 questions that way. So now we have a series of about 4 or 5 source code writing questions that come next. For the source code writing questions, what could I possibly ask you about Objective-C? Well, I could have you make instances of objects. So you're going to have to make an instance of an object. I'm going to give you an object, and I'm going to say make an instance of it. So know the syntax of making instances of objects. Let me find a, oh, let's look at class. This is a good one. These are instances of objects. So, and the instances run the alloc, and they run the init, initialize. You can do it in one step, you can do it in two steps. How you do it, I don't care. If you're used to doing it in 2 lines of code, not 1 line of code, that's fine. So know how to make an instance of an object. You'll have to do it given a description. Given, it's not like a generic, make an instance of an object. I'm going to tell you what object it is. I'm going to tell you what I want you to do with it. So I give you the information. You don't have to write the object code. But for example, these are class A and class B. You'll be given an object. Now, we have initializers in the classes, and you know how to be familiar with how to run initializers that are not the default initializer. And which is kind of the same thing with running methods that take parameters. So you pass information through the methods. So you want to know how to run a method. I'm talking about question 2 now, or number 11. So you want to be able to run initializers that take parameters as well as methods that take parameters, the syntax for it. What I'm going to do is give you a sample class. You're going to do something to the class in the first question. And in the second question, you're going to do another thing to the class. And what could you possibly do? Make instances of it, and then from the instance, you're going to run methods, and you're going to do stuff with it. It's really just a demonstration of how can you run a method on an object. It's really, if you've done the programming assignments yourself, it's a no-brainer, actually. It's not too hard. Not anything too complicated. Let's see. Know how to, let me just see one real quick here. Know how to create methods as well, and how to assign data. Which is really question number 12. So 10, 11, and 12 are dealing with creating instances of objects, running initializers on objects, and running methods and creating methods for objects. And also keep in mind, if you can't answer a question because you're supposed to write a method and then you're supposed to run that same method in the next question, if you can't figure out how to write it, obviously you're not going to be able to figure out how to run it. But if you can just put like a big old question mark in there and kind of write it, but don't do it, but then run it, you'll still get points for running it even though you couldn't write it, is what I'm trying to say. So don't, because what ended up happening the last weekend I had this class, it's different questions, it's not the same exact exam. It's on the same concepts, different questions, however, so you can't cheat on this. But I had a lot of people just left it blank in this section because they couldn't figure out how to write the method. And then they come, well, if I can't write the method, I wouldn't run it. So just pretend like you wrote it. So I'm saying is you're going to lose double points if you can't pretend like you wrote it, even though you couldn't write it. The best scenario is you can write the method and you can run the method that you just wrote. But if you can't write it, at least, which is the harder of the two, actually, then at least fake it. Just pretend like you wrote it and then just run it. If you leave it blank, you don't get any points for anything. All right. Let's see. Number 13 is on property and synthesize. So you'll be running a property and synthesize data. I believe, let's take a look here. It's not in this one, it's going to be in the other one. There's going to be a property synthesize. We didn't get really into exception handling, so there's nothing on exceptions, I pulled that out. The other class had some stuff on exceptions. I pulled it off of your exam because we didn't run exception handling. Exceptions at all, actually. So, but okay. So number 13 is on the property and synthesized concepts, and what that does, and you know. Your number 14. You're running a method on an object. That's all I can tell you. It's not an initializer. But you'll be given the information that you're supposed to be doing for it. Number 15. So, in the initializers, you can call the initializer for super. So remember the syntax. In fact, maybe it's in here. I think it's probably going to be in one of these. Let me see. Maybe it's going to be in 3. Let's see if I have it in here. Oh, here we go. Here's an initializer. So the initializer we're looking at is running super. Be familiar with this concept. There's a question where you're practically writing this type of an initializer, where you're basically gonna run the initializer of super inside of an initializer that you're gonna create for an object. So there's a couple different ways of doing it. This is one of the ways of doing it. You could put this test in here. Essentially, you know, if super init doesn't come back correctly, then do something else, kind of thing. So if I said create an object person that initializes the first name to Bob and the last name to Smith, and that runs super initializer, then that's the biggest level of difficulty for the programming part of it. That's really not that bad, but it's something you want to be familiar with, writing initializers and running initializers. That will help you significantly. And it's all in code 1, 2, 3, 4. And you have this afternoon to learn this stuff if you don't know it already. So, number 16 starts the short answer, no more source code. So it's really only 1, 2, let's see, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 6 questions that are source code related. So the next one here is on the concept of the auto-release pool. You do not have to write source code for it, but it's on memory. So remember, we have alloc, retain, release, and auto-release pool. We don't use auto-release pool anymore, but it's part of the garbage collection concept, and it's part of the memory management system of Objective-C. Then the question is on those concepts. So there's a lecture actually out here called Memory, I think, or something. It's further down. It's really in the PowerPoint section. For those of you who came in late, if you're looking for the lectures for this class, it's moved because I've already populated this with Spring. It's down in the previous courses, and it's the last class down here. The previous courses, you'll find our class again. I just rotated to the previous. But in here, there's a PowerPoint lecture, and the PowerPoint lecture is up here. There's only 8 of them. All the questions are actually coming out of these lectures. So these are not bad study aid either. There's one in here called Memory. It talks about auto-release pools and talks about pools in general. And the semi-automatic and the automatic. We don't actually have to put on ARC anymore, but automatic reference counting. There's no button anymore. Actually, some of you did this with older ones probably, but current version of Xcode doesn't really deal with that concept anymore. But the concept is not programming. It's a short answer question. So it's on that. Actually, number 17 is on the same. So 16 and 17 together. So it's really 2 questions on this memory concept. In fact, the word ARC actually shows up in question 17. So be familiar with how memory has been managed in Objective-C. The dynamic memory, dynamic allocation, dynamic resources, retaining, releasing. What does it mean to have a reference to something? So, Wow, number 18, I'm sorry. 16, 17, and 18 are all on the same concept. Wow, I put 3 questions on there on that. So there's 3 questions on protocols and categories, 3 questions on memory as well here. Hopefully we're going to a different topic on the next one. So number 19 is on a totally different topic. So there's 3 on memory, 3 on protocols and categories. Big area, I guess. Number 19 is on the ship concept. Remember the ships? Is there a relationship between the ships and the cruise ships and the cargo ships? So it's on that assignment, and it's on the learning objective of that assignment. And the inheritance and the way the ships all work together, the relationships that they all have with each other. It's on that assignment, actually. Wow, number 20 and number 21 are protocol and category related again. So there's a lot of protocols and categories. This exam got a lot of protocols and categories on it. Well, the other one didn't have anything on protocols and categories, so I went overboard on this one, I guess. So let's see. They're concept questions. Because you think, it's like the interface. We don't have interfaces. Like the interface in Java, but we don't have interfaces in Objective-C. So it's all in the rules and the interface kind of concept, implemented in protocols and categories. There's like 3 or 4 lectures on this stuff, though. And there's a tutorial or 2 on it, too. But these are actually simple questions. Simpler, actually, than the multiple choice ones. So. Number 22 is on model view controller. In fact, the words model view controller actually appear in the question. Be familiar with the model view controller design pattern. Let's see, number 23. Number 23 is on mutable data types in Objective-C. Mutable data types. So let's just take a look here. Access modifiers. Probably looking at the, not the type. I don't know if you're going to actually have variables and let's see, those are, no. You're going to have various different examples, but look up in the course notes and the PowerPoints the mutable versus the non-mutable. There's a lecture that goes into data types. We had one earlier in the course, a tutorial that was called data types that might help you with that as well. So it's on the concept of the mutable data type in Objective-C. Number 24 is on the foundation framework. About the foundation framework. So, hello. And that's going to be in the beginning part of the course. In fact, lecture 1 talks about foundation framework. Lecture 1, 2, 3. Wow, I'm going through this pretty fast. Number 25 is the last question on the exam. Number 25 is on the access modifiers, access methods, private, public, protected, and what the default is for everything. So, know the defaults. Know, how do you make something private? How do you make something public? Can you? I'll leave you that one to research this afternoon, actually. But it's on the access modifiers. We have one called private. Let's see what's private about. Let's take a look here. And this is just demonstrating the private nature of classes. I don't know if we actually have an example on this one in particular. It's one of those kind of overall see, a lot of the questions actually are very broad. So, which is it's good for you because then if you know something about it, you can answer what you know about it. I'm not looking for a specific answer. I'm looking for how does this apply to this? So if you know something about it, you can pull from your memory. It's not like those exams where you have to like fill a word in. Where you go, what word is what framework is used for, and you have to write foundation in there. It's not like that. It's like where if you can remember something about it, then you have an opportunity to get points for it. And each one of the questions is worth multiple points. So if you write something on there but you're not completely correct, you'll get 1, 2, or 3 points, depending upon the question and where it fits in there. And so it's pretty evenly spaced out in terms of multiple choice, source code writing, and short answer. So it shouldn't be too difficult, I would say. That was a really quick review. Are there any questions about the exam?
Can we get breakouts of the classes? PPT?
I'm sorry?
Can we get this?
No, it's closed book, closed note, closed internet. So it's closed everything. So there's no printouts or anything allowed. If I did that, it would be too easy for you. You would just copy from the printout because all of the information is coming from the PowerPoints. It's coming from the information that it's given you in the class. So I want to see what you can remember from it, not what you can pull off the internet. So it's closed technology, closed book, closed notes, closed everything. It's really kind of a comprehensive sort of exam to see what it is you actually picked up from the course. That was a good question. Any other?
Questions are equally marked.
There's a higher weight on the short answer and the source code. There's only 9 multiple choice on the whole thing. The whole thing is worth 40 points. The later part of the exam is worth heavier points. The multiple choice is only it's only 9 questions. 9 points is on multiple choice. So the rest of it's on everything else.
Subjective?
Excuse me?
Like descriptive questions?
Well, actually, I've been recording this. You just came in. You just missed everything. So listen to the recording. I'm not going to repeat the last. I don't know how long it's been, a half hour or so. It's recording right now, actually. So. Any other questions on the exam? You'll have as much time as you need. Most people. Okay, so the last time when we did this a couple weekends ago, people took about 2 hours. So if your flight's at 4 o'clock, or actually, hopefully it's not at 4 o'clock. Hopefully your flight's later because you'll need it. The exam cannot start until 3 o'clock. You'll probably need 2 hours, hour and a half to 2 hours. Some students actually took longer than 2 hours.
We get prepone the exam time because we have
I don't pick the exam time. In fact, I don't even give you the exam. The school gives you the exam. And they pick the exam time. And they pick 3 o'clock for all. They run them all at 3 o'clock on Sundays. I don't pick the exam time.
Yes, we don't stay here, so.
I'm sorry?
Oh, we have flights too.
Oh, I know. That's what I say. Hopefully you picked a later flight because you'll need 2 hours for this exam.
Unfortunately, that's the last flight.
I'm sorry?
That's the last flight we can pick. So.
I don't know what flight you're on. I don't know anything about your flight schedule. However, I'm trying to tell you that at 3 o'clock tomorrow is when they are going to give you the exam. And if you want to maximize, you want to stay probably till about 5. You want to make sure you can stay till about 5. So if you can delay your flight till 7 or so, or whenever your flight is, I don't know what it is. But long story short, you're probably going to need, if you want to pass the exam with a good score, you're probably going to need about 2 hours on it. So, and unless you want to just, it's harder to answer, especially when you have to write it versus multiple choice. Or multiple choice, you can take the exam in 5 minutes. But this one you can't take in 5 minutes is what I'm trying to tell you. Any other questions? It got cold, didn't it? It just got cold all of a sudden. No? Okay, then I'll stop this recording. Unless we have other questions? Okay.